2021 has been another year. Parts have been good, parts have been bad, and through it all, I've continued to try to figure out how to move forward in this world and life that I barely understand. If it wasn't obvious by the mere existence of this channel, I look to pieces of media to help me navigate different things I'm going through. Games, shows, films, music, and really every art form I engage with give me things to pull from whenever I need it, whether it be while going through a tough time or celebrating successes. And as we have somehow reached the end of another year, I wanted to reflect on a few things from it that have stuck with me the most. Last time I did this, I solely focused on games, and while that certainly will be the core of this video because that is the media I consume the most of, I'm also going to touch on some stuff outside of the game sphere that has shaped my year. So without any further ado, these are the things that got me through 2021. And as always, I think the best place to start is the start. That's going to be the first game I played this year, which somewhat unsurprisingly was Outer Wilds. Anyone who has played, and especially beaten Outer Wilds, knows that it isn't really the kind of game you can replay. Progression is tied to player knowledge, so once you know the secrets of the solar system, beating it takes barely any time at all. Playing through the core of the game is really just going through the motions for the sake of it. However, at the beginning of the year, I was craving that sense of wonder that Outer Wilds had given me when I first experienced it. So I decided to jump back into it and approach the game in a way I hadn't before, by going for all the achievements. I've talked extensively in the past about my issues with 100%ing games, but the achievement list in Outer Wilds is actually pretty good. The vast majority of them ask players to engage with the game in unique ways, whether it be trying to land on something that you're really not supposed to land on, or getting to places in an unintended fashion. Going through the game this way didn't provide anything close to the feeling I had when I first played it, but there was a sense of familiarity there I found comforting. It was nice to be back in that world with a new purpose, even if that purpose was short-lived and in some cases a bit silly. All in all, it just felt good to be replaying a game that I loved, even if I wasn't getting nearly as much out of it as I did in the past. And revisiting old favorites was actually a pretty common trend for me this year. I replayed Hollow Knight for the first time since it came out and grew a whole new appreciation for it, as now I had a better understanding of its mechanics and exploration, making the things that had once frustrated me not be a problem at all. This made it so I finally got around to all the things in the game I had missed on my first playthrough, and just like Outer Wilds, it was nice to be back with new purpose. I also revisited Majora's Mask, Uncharted 2, Wind Waker, and Portal 2, and while I can't say that all my old favorites held up in the way I hoped they would, I still found joy in just being able to re-experience things that once meant the world to me. Sometimes it can be hard to get into a new game because you don't know what to expect and don't know if it will even be for you. And because of that, for a while this year, I wasn't playing much of anything at all. I was stuck in a bit of a rut, but replaying games I knew I cared about helped break that. And on a personal level, doing victory laps through many of my favorite titles brought me a lot of solace, especially in times where I was struggling the most. Honestly, even looking at a lot of the games I connected to that actually released this year, many of them still had a sense of familiarity to them. For instance, Resident Evil Village felt like the perfect cross-section of the aesthetic and general campiness of Resident Evil 4 and the more horror-focused gameplay of Resident Evil 7. RE4 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I found RE7 to be a nice reinvention of the franchise, so Village pretty much felt like it was made for me. Bowser's Fury took movement and design elements from Super Mario 3D World, which, I know this is a controversial take, is my favorite 3D Mario game, and it created a compelling, small open world that has me very hopeful for future entries to the series. Psychonauts 2 finally came out after me being positive it never would, and despite having become so disconnected from the property due to years of waiting, when I played it for the first time, I genuinely cried a bit because I was so overwhelmed by the fact that I was actually playing a new Psychonauts game after all that time. Life is Strange True Colors provided the comfy vibes that the series is famous for, while also serving a solid story with far less Hello Fellow Kids energy than earlier entries. And to bring it back to where I started, Echoes of the Eye released, and it gave me that sense of wonder I had been craving when I went achievement hunting all the way back in January. It let me actually relive a feeling I never expected to have again, which was incredible. incredible. Generally, I really enjoy branching out and trying games that I know nothing about, as it is how I found some of my favorite titles. But having the chance to replay old favorites and also experience new content within familiar properties helped steady me this year. I live with a lot of uncertainty. I constantly am second-guessing every aspect of this job I've lucked into. So often I feel like I'm teetering on an edge ready to fall at any moment. So as silly as it may sound, playing familiar games gave me a sense of security. They acted as a sort of comfort blanket I could cover myself in when I just needed to feel good. And now that I'm at the end of the year looking back at my list of every game I've played, I guess I needed that a lot. Of course, I did play plenty of new and fresh IPs that left massive impressions on me, most of which were in the indie scene. One definitely stands out among the rest though, as I haven't stopped thinking about it since playing it. And that's Before Your Eyes. As I've gotten older, time only seems to move faster. Days melt away, and especially when I get caught up in a project, weeks can go by without me processing the passing of time. Like mentally, I'm still in August. Also, as I look back at my life, every year I remember less and less from when I was younger. The gaps between memories only grow with age. So playing Before Your Eyes, which centers around a mechanic where if you blink in real life, time in the game moves forward, unsurprisingly ruined me. Every moment in Before Your Eyes is fleeting, and that idea is explored through the story, which is all about doing enough with the life that you're given. This isn't the first time I've played or seen something that explores that theme, but there was something about having an involuntary human function, like blinking, controlling the pace of the game that connected me to that theme in a profound way. No matter what I tried, at some point I had to give up and blink. There's a sort of hopelessness to trying to slow things down and gain complete control over the movement of time in the game. And that's real shit. For any of you who have watched a few of my videos, you've probably picked up on the fact that I struggle immensely with living in the moment. I'm often looking at who I could or should be instead of who I am. And not only does that create an unrealistic expectation for myself, it also has me living in a constant state of unfulfillment. While I do believe that people are never meant to stop growing, it's also important to take pride in the steps we've made. I am awful at recognizing the achievements I've reached, and Before Your Eyes was a good reminder that there is just as much, if not more value, in the things we've done than in the things we may do. Thinking about the other games I played in this vein, it was a pretty great year for existential dread. Inscription toyed with the format of roguelike card builders, examining the life of a game in a way that only Daniel Mullins could. Unsighted presented a world where each of the characters' lives have a time limit, creating an experience where every action felt like it mattered, and I was incentivized to use every tool in my arsenal to save as many people as I could. And Disco Elysium: The Final Cut dropped, so I finally got around to playing what everyone kept telling me would become one of my favorite games ever. And yeah, everyone was right. It's very good. Being set in a desolate city armed with a shocking amount of approaches to every situation, most of which just lead to getting into more trouble, provided an experience about as close to a tabletop RPG that I've ever seen in a video game. It's thought-provoking, and one day I hope I'm smart enough to make a longer breakdown of everything it accomplishes. Jumping between familiar titles that comforted me and newer ones that made me feel deeply uncomfortable was a prevailing pattern for me this year. Ultimately, I think approaching games in this way helped recharge me when I needed it, and then got me to reflect on life when I was ready to do so. In the most surprising twist of the year, I started to get interested in the dangerous world of League of Legends. Don't worry, I stopped short of actually playing it, but with the release of Netflix's animated show Arcane, I got pulled deep into a franchise that I had written off as a waste of time. To put it simply, Arcane is incredible, and watching it filled me with a lot of hope for the future of Western animation. For whatever reason, Western audiences are still resistant to animated shows, often brushing them off as being just for kids. But Arcane is a perfect example of why that's stupid. The best way to put it is that Arcane isn't just good for an animated show. It's good because it is an animated show. It uses the medium to its fullest in order to tell a complex story about a cast of characters who all manage to be interesting and likable in one way or another. another, all the way from the heroic leads you're supposed to cheer for to the truly horrific villains you empathize with in spite of yourself. It's a shining example of how powerful animated storytelling can be. There's a lot to say about this show that I plan to cover in some capacity in the future. But as for how it helped shape my life this year, it gave me a new set of characters to connect with and a world to explore that is far richer than I ever expected. There's something special about diving into the lore of a world that's new to you. And I know a lot of people like me who have never gotten into League have been experiencing a similar thing. It's just really good, and I can't wait for more. Hell, my Arcane obsession even led to me playing the Ruined King, which, by the way, if you're interested in turn-based RPGs, has one of the most intriguing combat systems I've seen in a while. I definitely say it's worth a shot. I put a few dozen hours into it, which I don't do for most games in that genre. While Ruined King was up there for me in terms of highest playtime, it was still well short of my most played game of the year. That honor goes to Super Auto Pets. On the surface, Super Auto Pets looks like a game you'd play to learn math for the first time. But in reality, it is an easy to understand but hard to master auto battler where you build a team of animals that go up against squads made by other players. I have never been all that into auto battlers, and to be honest, I avoid most games that don't have a definitive ending. Especially over the past few years, I've aimed to play as many different titles as possible, so putting countless hours into a single roguelike or multiplayer game has just never been my style. However, I decided to try Super Auto Pets out on a whim, and while playing it, found that it filled a very specific utility, that being a game I could get value out of even if I only played it for 10 minutes at a time. I have this problem where if I have a short amount of free time, I often don't know what to do with it. My first thought almost always is to play a game, but with most titles, if I don't have at least an hour to dedicate to it, I'm hesitant to boot it up. And I admit it's stupid, but that hesitancy leads to me putting off playing anything, and instead I end up just scrolling through Twitter, which, is not good. However, with Super Auto Pets, games are relatively quick. Also, you can stop at any time and pick up exactly where you left off. It's a perfect game for small doses, which I've really valued over the past few months, as it is very easy for me to get too caught up in work. So having a game that is both fun and good for small breaks has provided a lot of value for me. While there are obviously plenty of games that fill this function for other people, Super Auto Pets is the first I've played that feels like it fits my style. It also got me back into watching Northern Lion, all but cementing my status as an old man, you piece. And while we're on the topic of Super Auto Pet streamers, let's talk about Ludwig.
Count what you have now, don't count what you don't have.
No streamer has had quite the year that Ludwig has. He's hosted multiple game shows, launched a wildly successful podcast, and of course, ran a month-long subathon back in March, where after 30 days of nonstop streaming, he broke the all-time sub record on Twitch. And I watched most of it. I've never been a huge Twitch viewer, but once COVID hit, I, like many others, found myself with a lot more free time, as the majority of social things I did were no longer options. And while it wasn't a replacement for human contact with actual friends, Twitch offered a small reprieve from some of the isolation. Being able to put up a stream on my second monitor while playing a game or editing a video gave me something to listen to so that I wasn't left alone with myself. So throughout March, whenever I needed something on in the background, Ludwig was live, and that's what I'd put on. It's kind of hard to put into words, but there was just a vibe to his streams during the subathon that was really special. To be clear, the content itself wasn't exceedingly interesting. A lot of it was him sleeping or watching YouTube videos or just doing everyday tasks. Also, the chat was often insufferable, as people would flood in whenever the clock got low and talk constantly about how time was about to run out, even though anyone who had been there for more than 5 minutes knew with fair certainty that no one was going to let it hit zero. Despite all of that, there was a unique communal feel to it. I think part of that was due to help he got along the way from his mods and occasionally his roommates who kept the stream going when he slept or was away for long periods of time. Part of it came from the kind of content he focused on throughout the subathon, most notably movie nights, where everyone would watch stuff together ranging from The Truman Show to Video Game High School. And part of it stemmed from the simple fact that the reason the stream didn't end was because people made it their mission for it not to. While it was funny to see Ludwig wake up to a much higher timer than when he had gone to sleep, I think most people, especially as the month went on, wanted to see him break the record. And to me at least, it was really cool to both witness and be a part of. Seeing a community bigger than just his own come together to help him reach a wild achievement felt nice. It also helped to know he was paying his mods really well and donating a lot to charity, so it wasn't just giving money to a millionaire for the sake of giving money to a millionaire. It was an interesting moment to experience, as during it, I knew nothing quite like it would happen again, and even if it did, I wouldn't be invested in the same way. But during that time where I didn't have all that much to do aside from work, the Subathon was something I could turn to in order to have a unique form of entertainment, and I'll always look back at it fondly for that. Going from watching one rich dude stuck in his room for a prolonged period of time to another, it is that point of the video where I tried to talk about Bo Burnham's inside. I'll be honest, I have little interest in actually examining Burnham's special. Not in any sort of analytical way, at least. It's the kind of piece that, based on everything it covers, feels a little weird to make a video essay about. However, given how much of an impact it had on me, it'd feel even weirder not to mention it at all. Inside felt in many ways like a cultural moment. It was an exaggerated example of the social isolation many of us have experienced over the past 2 years. It was thoughtful, uncomfortable, and occasionally funny. It also made me rethink everything about the creative process and what I do here on YouTube. Despite Burnham breaking into the mainstream, there is something so familiar about his work. Really, at its core, Inside feels like a big YouTube video. It all takes place in a single room and has a DIY feel to it that resembles countless videos on this platform. In a way, something about it feels achievable, and it made me want to do better. I don't know if it's been noticeable to any of you, but I've definitely shifted my approach to creating videos since watching Inside. A lot of the changes have been subtle, but they've helped me connect a lot more to the things I'm making. The special was a bit of a wake-up call, a reminder that there is more I want to do here than just talk about video games. And of course, I do want to keep talking about video games, but I also want to improve my craft, experiment with different formats, and examine all sorts of media through unique lenses that are often thought about but not often discussed. Inside does a lot, and as a creator, I related to it more than I wish I did. The reflection from it was kind of painful. Without it though, I don't think I'd be motivated in the way I have been more recently, and the way I am for this upcoming year. So yeah, 2021 has been another weird one. I've continued to adapt to this wild lifestyle I still don't understand how I fell into. I've felt more optimistic about stuff than I have in a long while, which is kind of nice. And I've grown as both a person and a creator, trying harder and harder to recognize that despite having a long way to go to reach where I want to be, I have a lot to be proud of and to celebrate. All in all, I'm thankful for all the things that helped me through this year. And without them, I would know less and have struggled more. Of course, now it's time to move to the next one. And as always, I'm hopeful it'll be better than the last. And for those of you looking for some actionable ways to better yourself in the new year, let me tell you about this video's sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant is a problem-solving website that provides interactive courses to teach you new things and hone your understanding of topics primarily relating to math and science. I find every new year I set goals for myself in terms of things I want to do and learn, but end up dropping them largely because I have no guidance, which is why Brilliant is great. It gives a frame to work within with courses that are actually fun to do, making it much easier to stick with long term. As someone who likes to learn new things, it has been a pleasure to explore what the site has to offer. So to get started, go to brilliant.org/Rasputin and sign up for free. Also, the first 200 people that go to that link, which by the way is in the description, will get 20% off the annual premium subscription. It's a really cool service that honestly everyone can benefit from, so check it out. Anyway, thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. For all of you still watching, hey, I hope you're well, and I hope you've had a good year. A big shout out to all my patrons who make this channel possible, and a special shout out to Elfinrez and WilliamGlenn8 for being honorary bagbutens. I appreciate you all. With that, I hope you have a great day and or night, and I'll see you in the new year.